I think I won the fight, and I think the fans support me on that. I think I won by 2 rounds at least. I'm not as big of a draw. They want the big fight to happen with Canelo, and Daniel Jacobs got X'd out. I won the fight and I won the decision, and all I can do is be gracious in victory and in defeat. After the knockdown, I told him he'd have to kill me. When I got up, I thought, is this all he has? There were many times during the fight I went toe-to-toe because I knew I could. I got back up and I thought I won the fight. I'm looking forward to the future. I think I gained a lot of fans. My style is good. I'm a fan-friendly guy, and I thought I won the fight. Those are the words of Danny Jacobs speaking in the post-fight interview following his 12-round unanimous points decision loss to middleweight champion Gennady Golovkin. For those of you who didn't catch it, that was the post-fight interview that he did with Max Kellerman. Now, he insinuates there that the reason the judges didn't give him the decision was political. And when I say political, I'm not talking about government political. I'm talking about boxing political. In the sense that he believes the powers that be, and I guess he must be talking about HBO there, are heavily invested in making a mega fight between Triple G and Canelo Alvarez. That fight would generate enormous numbers in terms of pay-per-view. And pay-per-view in terms of, boxing pay-per-views in America, it's dwindling, it's dying. And particularly on HBO, where they've got a shortage of fighters, they are desperate for the next big pay-per-view extravaganza. They're desperate for Canelo to get in there with somebody big. They've obviously got Canelo versus Chavez. That's going to be big. But they want something after that too. They're a business at the end of the day. And Jacobs believes that they were never going to allow him to get in the way of them making this Golovkin-Canelo fight. Because if Jacobs had got the decision, that would certainly take a lot of luster away from Golovkin-Canelo. It might still be feasible, but it would certainly take a lot of luster away from it, and it would probably hurt business. So this is why Jacobs believes he didn't get the decision. A lot of other people out there who watched the fight, a lot of neutral fans, they believe the same thing, that it was political. Now, I haven't watched the fight for a second time. I haven't had the opportunity. I'm still looking to try and find a decent copy. As you know from my post-fight review, I did score the fight for Danny Jacobs. I thought he won the fight clearly by at least 2 rounds. But I also said that I want to watch the fight again because there are a lot of people who had the fight close, a lot of neutral people. I've seen a lot of neutral people who had the fight a draw. So, looking at neutral people who had the fight a draw and had it close, I want to give that the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to just dismiss it offhand. I do want to look at the fight again and try and see what they were seeing and score it round by round. Some people felt like Golovkin won. I personally, having watched it first time, can't make a case for Golovkin winning. Certainly not by the margins that he did win. I think he won by 2 points on 2 cards and then 1 point on another card. I thought Danny Jacobs won it, but again, I'm going to watch the fight and make another video when I do. But for now, I'd like to hear from you guys about the possibility that politics interfered with the scoring of this fight. Politics can interfere in the scoring of fights. This is the reality of it, especially when you've got the type of money flying around that you have around a fight like Canelo versus Golovkin. Politics could get involved. And I'm not trying to say they did get involved. I'm just saying it's a possibility in any fight that politics can influence a judge's decision. So let me know what you felt about this. I personally felt like Danny Jacobs, one thing I have to say, whether you believe Jacobs won a fight or not, I have to take issue with anybody who acts as though Jacobs is lying when he says he felt like he won the fight. If you can't see that Danny Jacobs genuinely believes he won the fight, then I don't know what to say to you. I'm not sure I can take your particular opinion that seriously, because just look at his body language at the end of the fight. Look at his body language when the decision was read out. He really believed he was going to get the decision, and he believed that he'd won the fight. Look at him at the end of the 12th round. Now, many times you'll see fighters raise their arms at the end of the 12th round when they blatantly didn't win the fight. That does happen. But in those situations, it's normally both fighters who raise their arms. And you're looking at one of the guys raising their arms and you're saying, put your arms down. You know you didn't win. In this instance, though, Jacobs was the one who looked elated at the end of the fight. And it was Golovkin who didn't even I can't remember him putting his arms up anyway, but Golovkin's body language to me at the end of the fight looked like that of a beaten man. whereas Jacobs looked like he genuinely believed he won. I think in Golovkin's mind, he was thinking he lost the fight. That's just my personal interpretation of the way both fighters looked. I'm not trying to break down the scorecards and all that kind of stuff right now, no. And before I close out the video, it has been pointed out to me, and I have seen for myself, that the CompuBox numbers apparently show that Golovkin threw and landed more punches than Daniel Jacobs, which to me is surprising, because watching the fight first time around, to me, it looked as though Jacobs was the more active guy. Golovkin's jab was landing a lot, though. That's one thing I will say. So perhaps that counted for a lot of the punches landed by Golovkin. His jab was landing nice. And Danny Jacobs' eyes were swollen up because of that consistent jab that Golovkin... In fact, the jab was Golovkin's best punch in the fight. He didn't really land power punches or even body shots. Actually, there was hardly any body shots in the fight from Golovkin. He struggled to get in position to land his body shots because Daniel Jacobs was moving so much. So, yeah, the CompuBox stats, they're never completely accurate. They do give a rough guide, and that's the reason why they don't use CompuBox to score fights. It's the right decision to not use CompuBox to score fights, because CompuBox doesn't take into account the quality of the punches landed. It doesn't take into account... the quality, and also it's a situation where when you're at ringside, punches can look like they land when they don't, and vice versa, which is why judges don't only score on punches landed. Punches landed is the main thing. Who's landing the more clean, effective punches? But you can't always see every single clean, effective punch that lands. So also the judges are looking at who's the ring general. And the ring general doesn't necessarily mean the guy who's coming forward. It means the guy who is doing more of what he wants. The guy who's most comfortable doing what he's doing and looks like he's controlling the action doing what he's doing. So you could be on the back foot and look like the ring general, You don't necessarily have to be coming forward. So these are the things that judges will look at as well as who's landing the most clean, effective punches. So, I can't say nothing about that. CompuBox say that Golovkin landed and threw more punches. Fair enough. Maybe it was an accurate CompuBox, and maybe he did throw and land more punches. But my perception at the time of watching the fight was that it was actually Jacobs who seemed to be the more active. I don't know. So let me know what you feel in the comment section below. Was it a political decision that Jacobs lost the fight? Were you somebody who felt it was very close and could have gone either way? For example, I would say the majority of the British press are saying the fight could have gone either way. I saw Gareth Davies, I think he writes for The Guardian. He's a big boxing journalist in the UK. He said he had the fight a draw between Golovkin and Jacobs. And, I've seen many other people in the British press say, they had Golovkin by maybe a point or Jacobs by a point or two. Very close. There's not that many people, certainly not in the British press that I've seen, that had Jacobs winning by a decent margin. They've all had it close. So I respect that. Regardless of how you scored the fight, this obviously and definitely was Triple G's most difficult fight of his title reign, without question. And it was far more difficult than he thought it was going to be, far more difficult than his trainer Abel Sanchez thought it was going to be, and far more difficult than the majority of boxing fans thought it was going to be, both Golovkin fans, Jacobs fans, and neutral fans. Most of us felt like Golovkin would stop Danny Jacobs. I certainly did. And I was surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised, but I was... Because I felt like Danny Jacobs could be a potential banana skin for Golovkin. So, Jacobs did better than I expected. But given the size of him, because he was 180 pounds in the ring, his athleticism, his speed, his punching power, his physical strength, it's not really that shocking, that he was able to do that well, because he had the confidence in there. He certainly wasn't afraid of Golovkin, and he did stand toe-to-toe with Golovkin quite a lot, particularly later on in the fight. He said in post-fight interviews that Golovkin's power wasn't as great as people said it was going to be. So he felt comfortable later on in the fight actually going toe-to-toe, particularly when some of the steam had come off of Golovkin's punches, to be fair. And as far as the weight issue with Danny Jacobs, a lot of Golovkin fans are making issue of this, the weight situation, as if Danny Jacobs cheated or something. He didn't cheat. He came in 180 pounds, which is very big, certainly very, very big, but he made the weight of 160 pounds the day before the fight at the official weigh-in, no problem. That's why the WBC and WBA and IBO belts were on the line, because those sanctioning bodies don't require you to have a day of the fight weigh-in. It's only the IBF that do that. And Danny Jacobs, has he fought for the IBF title before? Was he IBF champion? I don't think Danny Jacobs has, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think he's fought for the IBF title before. So I guess that was a new thing for him, having to weigh in on the day of the fight. And maybe he weighed himself and said, you know what, I ain't going to make that weight. I'm going to come in very heavy tonight, so there's no way I'm going to make the check weight of only 10 pounds over the middleweight limit. And just went with the WBC, WBA, and IBO rules and said, you know what, I weighed in on weight yesterday, so I'm going to weigh what the hell I want today. Kind of like how Canelo does it. You know, Canelo doesn't like weighing only 10 pounds over the weight limit on fight day. He likes weighing massively over the weight limit. Canelo fights at 154, or he has, and yet he weighs over 170 on fight night. That's well over 10 pounds north. You know, and even on the morning of the fight, I'm sure he's well over 10 pounds north of 154 or 155 Canelo catch weight, whatever. So, yeah, Jacobs didn't do anything outside of the rules other than with the IBF. The other sanctioning bodies, they're fine with it. So, you know, people trying to knock Jacobs for that, I think are clutching at straws, really. It's no different than what David Lemieux did the other weekend against Curtis Stevens. And I didn't hear too many of these people complaining about Jacobs' weight, complaining about David Lemieux the other weekend. I don't remember them kicking up a stink about it. You know, I didn't kick up a stink about the David Lemieux missing the same day weigh-in. So if I didn't kick up a stink about Lemieux missing the day of the fight check weight, then why am I going to kick up a stink about Danny Jacobs missing, you know, the IBF check weight? Anyway, let me start waffling here, people. Let me know what you think about the quote from Danny Jacobs in his post-fight interview, in terms of him insinuating that the decision to not give him the fight was political, or that the judges might have been some way swayed by the politics of the situation. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? Whatever the case may be, it's all good as long as we're respectful, all right? So drop your comments in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out.